Yeah, here I'm back again, and I'm going to show you how I make up my composting system. The only thing that we don't offer is a worm system itself. You have to buy this. In the case of the family that I'm doing this for, they got this off Trade Me's and recycled, and so I'll just explain a little bit about the types of things that you need. But you don't have to go hard out like they've done here, although this is not new. You can buy these from the garden centres or Mega Mitre 10 or Bunnings, or in the case for this particular system is from Worms R Us in Auckland. But you could have a bin. You could buy bins from the warehouse or Bunnings or so forth. I'm not tied to any particular ones, but the key thing that you're wanting to do is you have to decide what are you wanting out of it. Are you wanting juice, which is the bottom bit, and where are you going to store it? So in this system, you've got a base, you've got a filter between the base and where the worms sit. So the base is used to catch the water, which you can then utilise to fertilise your garden. And here it's got holes in it, which I'll show you soon. So you've got two of those. So you've got two of these lids that have got holes in them, which if I just lift up, so that for example, and that allows all the mimi, or well, it's actually not mimi, it's the like tuna. They've got moisture on the outside. They shed moisture out, and it ends up down at the bottom. So you're wanting that to run down. If you don't have a watering system, a capturing system, you can just have a hard copy like my starter kits, as I've talked about before. The only thing you'll need to watch is that it doesn't get too moist. If it gets too moist, then you have to add in dry materials, either carbon like newspaper or cardboard, or you could use coconut husks and so forth, which is dry and that sucks up the water. Otherwise it can go a bit funky, and so that's kind of what you're watching. If it goes too moist, it means you've got too much carbon in there, too much nitrogen types of fixtures, which is your green waste, and so you're wanting to dilute that a bit by putting in carbon, and carbon is all your brown stuff, your dry materials, and between the two they balance it out. And the worms, they don't, but these types of worms like moisture. They don't like going through dry soil. That's what your earthworms are for. But yeah, so that's but that's the system. You don't need to necessarily have 3 or 4 or 5 levels here, but this is what this one comes up with. So in here, I'll just break everything down for you. Let's just so you got a lid, and that's what it looks like inside. So the idea being is that the worms can go down, or in the case what we're trying to do is encourage the worms to go up, and then it'll leave a tray of worm castings that you can use for your garden. So in here, this is how it starts off. This is how I start off in doing my base. So what I've done here is, if I wanted to, I've put this in where I'm wanting to let the worm home sit inside, and I'm just using the pot. So for example, if I just wanted to go directly, so see how I've shrunken the level on here. So instead of having it from here on top of the lid, I've just shrunk the height down a bit using that. But for this particular one, I won't. I'll have the lid on it, but the idea being, if worms do fall from down there, they'll climb up on this, and as I check it, they'll be sitting on here, and they won't drown. So that's why I've left that in there. It's just a protective mechanism. Ideally, you're wanting a pot that touches the roof of this, because then the worms will crawl all the way up, which you'll see what happens. So that's just a little thing that I do. So here's the water catchment. This is the filter, so it stops all the dirt going through, and here is where my worms will go in here. So my starter. So you'd get a starter kit from us of bagged worms, normally about 15 kilograms. Now in the bottom here, to stop the soil going all the way through, you can do a number of things. You can get some old clothing, which I have. I'm not going to do it for this particular one. I'm just going to use cardboard. So I keep my cardboard, and in this case it's a pizza. Just make sure there's no plastic or things that they can't eat. I don't use the cardboard that's got glossy, like that box there is a glossy box, so I won't use that one. There's a kind of a film on the outside, a plasticky kind of thing that's made of it. I'm using cardboard because eventually worms will eat all this. So I put this in the base, that then stops the worms going all the way through, and then you pretty much the worm starter kit that you get from me, which is made up of 3 kilograms of worm and worm casting and raw material that's active. If I just gave you a bed, a worm bed, that worm bed is sterile. There's no activation that's happened in there, and there's no fungi, there's no microorganisms that are actually breaking down the materials. You need to add something that does that, and that's what our worm kits will do. So in here, I will tip in, and I'll show you once I've done it, I'll tip in my 3 kilograms of worms in here. So you've already got a starting kit. I'll also then put in some worm materials in the sense of food for them, so they keep going. Even though there's already food in this, what I could do is I could tip the worms into here, let them settle for a week, and then add food, because you've already got food in there that they need. But because these are good size, so good size container, and you've got a good size amount of worms, which is the 3 kilograms, it's going to work out okay for you. So what I'll do is I'll actually just kind of show you what I'm doing, and we'll just go out here. I had already, as you would have seen in my previous video, this is what's going to be inside here. So we've got what you would get delivered or couriered to you is this system, and I'll actually open this up because I see it sweeping. Sorry. And so inside there is all your starter kits. So that's 3 kilograms. It was packed today. Inside is worms and everything you need to go to get started. So that would be one element. Once I've set up my system, how I'm going to do it, where you're going to put it. You don't really want it in the direct sunlight. There's enough coverings over here, so it's not going to be any problematic. You want to put a base in the bottom, otherwise when I tip this, it'll go all the way through. Here you can use cardboard, you can use old clothing like tea towels or shirts or whatever, and just cut it to fit in. And then what I do is probably put cardboard on the side. That just then filters through just water and not your worm castings and your worms. You will need to watch this as you check on it every week or every 2 weeks, because the worms will eventually eat this. And so what I add to it, what I will be adding to it, is I'll just add in and then you'll see. So I've got so I've got to put my carbon in. So I'm adding more carbon, and I'll just throw those in just so you get an idea how I do it and the way it's functioning for me. So I'm just making sure that, so for example, I'll have a look at this envelope. So all this paper, that's been lying around that we normally throw out or so forth. Just got to make sure that on this one, before I actually go live with this, I'll take out that plastic that's in there, but the rest of it they'll eat. So we've got our worms that inoculate this. So I'm treating this as the bed. We can also, if you wanted to, you could get worm castings and then a couple of kilograms of bedding, which is basically materials that we've broken down in our composting system, and then I just bag that up, and so you can get the worm castings and some bedding, and then if you've got some spare carbon lying around the place, dry material, because remember the bedding will also be moist, and so you're wanting to use the carb to soak up the materials that are in there in the sense of the water. And then the last part is your add in food. So food will be the next part that we've got in here, and so I've got some of that. Joshua, can you bring that bowl of food that's on the step? Just bring it to me. I'll finish off. So this is the materials, what it looked like. Take a little, please. So here is my food waste that we've done for the last couple of days. So we've got paper, so that's the carbon, wood materials, it's carbon, and then I've got all this other materials, food waste in there. And so these are the three elements for an effective worming system. You have your own worms. Yep. Now it won't function. The system won't function without that. That's your crucial fixture. If you just do this without that, you're going to get very pongy fruit flies materials. You need something to inoculate this material, and what you actually have inside of here, one of the beauties of creation, is the microorganisms inside start eating all this material, and it's actually them that the worms are eating. So by them latching onto our materials, like your fruit and so forth and tea bags, it starts breaking that down, and then the worms eat it. What they're actually eating is the microorganisms that are attached to this. So you need this to help break down this. And once you're going, if it's too wet, you add more dry material in. If it's too dry, you add in more materials like this. See the water on that? So it just adds in it. You can take a bit of your worm juice and just sprinkle it on, but you're trying to get this kind of, if I squeeze, see the water come out and hold it, it holds itself together. That's perfect for the state of what you're looking for, is this ability for it to hold. You're squeezing it a bit, there's a bit of water in there, so there's enough moisture in the starter kit, and that holds together. That's your perfect inoculation for this material. Now what I've done there is, see an example, so all the dry materials is going to suck up all that moisture. In time, what will happen is that once this material is wet enough, any excess water will just then flow through down to your water catchment down in here, and then you have worm juice, wainoki, and then you just work through the process of fertilizing your garden as and when required. But you could do something every week, just dilute it a little bit because it's quite potent, but that is the start of your system. So all of that is we create as humans. we can provide the worms for you, and then you're away. So if you don't have this part, we can provide a bed for you, worm bed, which then we'd put the worms in, you'd mix it together, or and then you're away. Leave it for a week and then add food. And then probably once it fills up, you'll start seeing at the level of the worm casting gets higher and higher. Then you just add your next level up. So what will happen is, let's say that this is functioning and you're working away and you've got this is all that is in here, this is all mixed in, broken up, shredded or ripped into pieces. That's just up to you. Shredding is a great way, is that you put your next level on, and I'll just quickly show you that right now. So here's my next level. You would put your filter on, and then you'd put this on top like that, penny. Now the idea being, and I'll take it off just to show you, so as you're adding in materials, both compost and carbon, so your green waste and your brown waste, as you build, eventually that'll all get broken down and you'll see the height of the worms castings move up. One of the great things about a system like this, unlike my bath where it goes sideways, is that as it comes up higher, the worms will eventually hit this, or the bed will hit this. And so what you're doing is that you're allowing the worms, because what you're actually doing is you'll take a little bit of that material that you have it down below, put it in the base of this, and eventually the worms will come up through here and start eating this bed. You'd wait for a week or so, maybe 2 weeks or a month, it's really up to you. You're just watching it, and eventually you'll have the great migration. All these worms that were in this initial one that you started with will move up here, and they'll end up in this one here, and then the process starts again. You just do what you've done at the bottom using inside there, and down in here in 2 or 3 months time, 4 months time, depending on how regular feed it and so forth. Let's say it's 3 months, 6 months, 3 months, 3 to 6 months time, you'll have a full bed of worm castings with no worms in it. There might be some worm eggs, there might be some smaller worms, but most of your worms will be up in this top bit up here. So that means that you'll have a container of about 9 kilograms of worm castings that you can use. You can either use as part of your mix for your potting mix, your part of your mix for your tomatoes, your part of your mix for any part of your garden. You might use it as a top dressing for your garden, your potting mix and so forth. You've now got, for a pretty relatively cheap price, of your own fertilizing system. So you've got your worm castings, your worm juice that you can do. You start again, which is what this one's done. You take this one off, put this one over here, and then clean this out or store it. You can do that. Store the material that's in there in another container with the holes in the lid so that it aerates just in case there are worms in there. And then the process starts again. You'll just in time fill that up. So what you're doing is you've actually closed the loop of all this waste that we generally send to the rubbish tip, and at the same time you're building health in your garden and in the soil, and fixing the difficulties that are happening with the soil health that you might be having in your garden. All right, that's a little bit about, that's my second video. Part 3 will happen, and what I'll actually show you what this looks like broken down as a started compost. So what will happen is I'll rip up this material, I'll then feed my food waste into it, and I'll have this in there. So you'll see this mixture of the material that you've got from us in relationship to your starter worm castings. You'll have the brown waste that you're using, your carbon, and then your nitrogen or your food waste. Only thing you don't want to put in here is meat. Yeah, they don't like, well, they'll eat it, but not straight away. The worst part about it, if you put meat in there, it's all your rodents, your mice and things like that. They get attracted to it and start eating it. So you want to stay away from that as much as possible. If you get fruit flies for the lovely sweet fruit that's in there, just bury it. Use the compost or your worm castings and your starter kit to bury everything. But we'll see that soon in the next one. Okay, all right. Man, awesome. Have a great day. Enjoy your composting system, wherever you may be. And yeah, hey, Connor.